back to the Move Better channel, you guys. I'm your host, Dr. Joe, and this is the Professor John Penna-Serrata. Today, we're gonna be doing some basic hip openers, some hip mobility exercises that you can do at your office, your desk, anything that you can do to get you guys moving better. All right, so the first exercise that we're gonna do is we're gonna put John's foot or your foot on an elevated surface. We're gonna work on hip mobility. Now, I know that there's the world's greatest stretch out there. This is gonna be that first phase, especially for people who haven't been moving so much or so long. We wanna just try to get those hips to open up as much as possible. The more we open up those hips, the more it can help with allowing the spine to do what it needs to do. So without further ado, let's put his foot up on an elevated surface right here. Notice where his heel on the other side is down. He's gonna place both hands on the inside part of his foot. Go ahead and place your palms down there. Now, as he's doing this, he's driving his knee forward, and his knee has to go outside his shoulders just to clear his hands. And so that is already rotating the femur and the tib out away to release tension within the front part of his hips. Let's do that from this view over here. Now he's going to place his palms down. This is just another view here. Notice as he's driving forward here, his knee is going to go to the outside part of his shoulder. He's opening up his hips, and this is a simple, non-strenuous way of opening up the hips. So the next one we're going to do is the pigeon stretch, putting his knee on top and his heel on top of an elevated surface. And again, he's pushing his knee down. He's driving his foot down. He's placing his elbows out in front of him here. And then again, this is phase one. This is going to be an easier way of doing it. As he's putting his elbows down, he's trying to roll his body over the foot. And that way we can get a little bit more of a stretch along that glute, opening up that hip as much as we can. He's going to sit here for about a minute or so. And if he wanted to, he can activate it. And then the way to activate it is by pushing his knee down. Rather than just leaning into his knees here, he could push his foot and his knee down into that elevated surface to where we can get a little bit of a contraction with that muscle. Once we relax it, he can work on stretching and increasing flexibility in that area. Let's get that other view of this. So again, he's going to push his knee down. He's going to push his knee down, and he's going to push his foot down. And he's going to drive his body over, and he's going to roll into his foot here as he's releasing tension off of his glutes, off of those outside part of his leg here, and he's creating mobility. So mobility, put pressure into it, and then he's going to work a little bit on flexibility, relaxing as he's leaning down into it. As now we've gotten some hip flexion and external rotation, now we're going to work on hip extension. And so for his case, he's getting closer to you guys over here. But what he's going to do is he's going to drive that outer foot out in front of him here, all the way forward, all the way forward. Perfect. And as he's in this position here, notice what he's trying to do. His lower back immediately starts to tighten up, and he hinges at his lower back. Because his hip flexors are really tight, he's just going to lean forward first. There you go. You place your hand on your knee over here. And you can have a stick, you can have anything that can help you out. Now he's putting his whole quad on there, and he's already feeling a stretch here. Instead of leaning up, all he can simply do is tuck into a posterior tilt here to where he's dipping the front part of his hips backwards, and he could feel a little bit more of a stretch.
Additional movement that we need for the hip is to do a hip extension. So we're gonna have Dr. Joe here put one foot forward, and the hip that we're gonna stretch is gonna go on top of the table or on top of a chair or a bench. Okay, as you can see here, he's upright, but we're gonna try to drive the hip forward, okay, with a posterior tuck of the pelvis. So you're rotating it backwards, okay, not forward. It's gonna eliminate a little bit of the curvature of the lower back, because as you stretch forward, your body is gonna wanna get that curvature. But posterior tilt first, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna push your hip forward. Some people, if it's really tight, you don't even have to go that far. You already start feeling stretch in this hip right here, okay? This back hip right here in the anterior part of that hip, okay? If you're a little bit more flexible, you could take your front foot, step it forward a little bit, okay? Same thing, try not to overarch the lower back. You're gonna rotate the pelvis backwards, lean forward. You could do a little bit of a hip hinge and get more of a stretch of the anterior part of those hip flexors, okay? And again, watch your spine here and get more stretch here. Something that you could also try is activate this glute right here. Okay, so this glute muscle right here, you contract it by pushing that hip forward and extending the hip back further. Hold it there for a few seconds, and then when you're ready, exhale, relax it, and then stretch it more. So from another point of view here, with that hip flexor stretch, hip extension, we're gonna contract the glute muscle right there, and we're gonna use that to anteriorly pelvic tilt and then drive the hip forward, okay? Posterior to pelvic tilt, and then drive the hip forward, almost like you're feeling like you're pushing your foot back that way as you push your hip forward and get a better stretch and mobility right here on the hip flexor area from the front part of the hip all the way down to the thigh area, okay? All right, this next exercise is stretch. Mobility exercise that you could do is a Cossack stretch. You could use a chair, or in this case scenario, we have a nice little dowel here that we could use for balancing. And we're going to stretch more the inner part of our thighs here, a little bit of the hamstring as well. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Dr. Joe split out wide as much as possible, bend one knee, okay, so this side is the right side, and as you can see, he's gonna feel a stretch in the anterior groin area, okay? Hold it there for a few seconds. Again, use the mobility stick to balance yourself out. From here, once you feel that nice stretch, hold it there for a good 30 seconds or so, and then to give it a little bit more emphasis, as he goes down, he could also rotate his toe up, pointing upward, and now he's gonna rotate and feel a little more stretch on the underneath part here, the hamstrings of his thigh, okay? So adductors, hamstrings, different parts of the hip. Hold it there for 30 seconds to a minute, all right? And then obviously do the other side. Get a nice stretch, point the toe upward, okay? Mobilize it, turn the foot forward, turn it up, and feel the different sensations you're gonna feel in the hip and the leg area, and see where you may feel more tightness. If there's more tightness, you may wanna spend a little bit of time on that area and get that loosened up. All right, so hopefully you guys take some of those stretches, try it out for yourself, help yourself with loosening up the hips, being more mobile in it. It will help you relieve any kind of tension, not just in the hip, but even in the lower back area, and sometimes in different parts of your body, okay? So hopefully you try those out. Like us, subscribe, check out our other videos. Give us some suggestions of what other videos you want to see us do, and share it with everybody. Hope to see you soon. We're out.